What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video. Now, in today's video, we'll be focusing on task 4 and task 6, speaking questions. So take out your notebooks, grab your writing utensils, and get ready to take some outstanding notes. That's the reading passage we'll be looking at today. The topic is outsider art. All right, thank you very much. The first sentence starts with outsider art. So the definition is outsider art, which is a term used to describe art that is made by people who choose to live and work outside society. How convenient. If the reading passage is this friendly, is this nice, take advantage of it, copy and paste whatever you see. All right, we don't need the reading passage anymore. The definition is prepared. Let's listen to the lecture.
All right, so let's consider the work of the outsider artist Henry Darger. Darger lived by himself in a tiny apartment in Chicago in the 1900s. He had no friends and spent all his spare time there alone, creating hundreds of paintings and drawings. He had never formally studied art and kept his work completely private, so no one ever saw it or responded to it during his lifetime. And so when you see Darger's work, you notice how unique it is. It doesn't remind you of anything you've ever seen before. It's very much his own. For example, one piece, it's a watercolor painting. In this piece, he illustrates a story about the adventures of 7 children. But see, Darger had a really hard time drawing human figures, yet he managed to come up with his own rather unique solution for the problem. He simply cut out pictures of children from newspapers and magazines and pasted them into his own painted illustration of trees, flowers, and grass. The results look a little strange. Darger's picture looks more cluttered, more crowded with details than the pictures of other artists because its entire surface is painted and there are no spaces left empty. It's also a lot longer than the pictures of most other artists, about 9 feet long.
All right, now in this lecture, the professor provided us with one example, and this example was about an artist named Henry Darger. Now let's take a look at my notes. Henry Darger lived by himself in a tiny apartment and created hundreds of paintings on his own. Plus, he never formally studied art, so his works of art were very unique. For example, in a watercolor painting, Darger had a hard time drawing human figures. Hence, he simply cut out pictures from newspapers and magazines and pasted them onto his painting. Needless to say, this painting is more cluttered and much longer than other works of art. There we go. So guys, when you're taking notes, especially if the professor is speaking this quickly, don't even think about keeping up with every single word he says. Instead, be very patient and just play with the details that you can listen to and reiterate very, very quickly. In other words, the sentences that you're able to basically copy and paste are the ones that you should be writing down and trying to repeat in your response. Okay? All right, now let's listen to how I put this together. In the lecture, the professor elaborated on a specific example of Henry Darger to explain the concept of outsider art. To begin with, Henry Darger lived by himself in a tiny apartment and created hundreds of paintings on his own. Plus, he never formally studied art, so his works of art were very unique. For example, in a watercolor painting, Henry Darger had a hard time drawing human figures. Hence, he simply cut out pictures from newspapers and magazines and pasted them onto his painting. Needless to say, this painting is more cluttered and much longer than other works of art. To sum up, this was a perfect example of outsider art, which is a term used to describe art made by people who choose to live and work outside society, given by the professor in the lecture. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Okay, so once again, steady and comfortable win the race, okay? If I spoke a little bit more quickly than this for no good reason, I would have had way more than 20 seconds left, which is the amount of time that I had left with this speaking pace. And then, even after I say thank you for your time and consideration, I might still have 4 more seconds left for no good reason. So guys, speak at your own pace. Never overextend yourself by rushing yourself, okay? All right, now let's move on to task 6.
So we're talking about interior design, specifically the basic principles typically used in home and office decoration in the United States. Effective designs create a delicate balance between two things. You need unity and you also need contrast, which is essentially a break in unity. Now this might seem a little contradictory, but let me explain why we need both of these for an effective design. So for the first principle, we need unity in our design. And think of it as consistency. Well, an easy and very effective way to do this is by bringing together similar elements. A common example is by matching colors. You pick a color and use it for different parts of the room. Say you pick green, and then use a light shade of green for the walls and maybe a somewhat darker shade for the fabric on the sofa. And finally, complement that with a matching green in the rug. When elements match, the room is unified and gives its residents a sense of order and comfort. Okay, but there is such a thing as too much unity. Remember, you need a balance of unity and contrast. If all you do is focus on unity, the result will be a boring room. So what do? Well, you apply the second basic principle of design, which is contrast. Contrast serves to disrupt or break up the unity in places, but in a careful, intentional way. Well, let's continue using color as an example. To create contrast, color contrast, you need to abruptly change your color scheme once in a while. Let's see, you could throw bright red cushions on your dark green sofa, for example. Contrast makes things stand out. The green will look even greener next to the red. So now your room is more interesting, not completely the same. But watch out, too much contrast is also dangerous, just like too much sameness is. Too much contrast will make the room feel busy.
All right. Now, for this lecture, the professor spoke at a very fast pace and for a significant amount of time because she touched upon a bunch of specific information, especially here and a little bit here as well. Guys, the trick is to ignore and summarize the specific information. Don't fall into the trap of chasing after those appealing and attractive details because that's how you start failing and making the process much more challenging for no good reason. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at my notes. In the beginning sentence, I'm going to say how effective interior designs create a delicate balance. Whenever you feel like your beginning sentence is organized in whatever part of the introduction in the lecture, I want you guys to forget about whatever the professor is saying and patiently wait for the first section, okay? Which is what I did. Okay, now over here I'm going to say, to begin with, unity is consistency. And an easy way to achieve unity is by matching colors. For example, if we use different shades of green in a room, we can give the room a sense of order. However, too much unity is often boring. Hence, contrast is necessary because it breaks up unity in a careful way. For example, in order to create color contrast, we can throw red cushions on a green sofa, which makes the room much more interesting. All right, now let's see how I package this together in a nice sample response. The professor gave a lecture about how effective interior designs create a delicate balance. To begin with, unity is consistency, and an easy way to achieve unity is by matching colors. For example, if we use different shades of green in a room, we can give the room a sense of order. However, too much unity is often boring, which means contrast is necessary because it breaks up unity in a very careful way. To be more specific, in order to create color contrast, we can throw red cushions on a green sofa, which would make the room become much more interesting. In summation, this was how effective interior designs create a delicate balance, which was illustrated by unity and contrast, given by the professor in the lecture. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. My goodness. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not expect myself to have that much time left when I was done summarizing the information here because, as you can see, it looks like a lot of stuff. This should be good news. No matter how much information you think you have, as long as you're able to connect the details that you took notes on and get through the information in a fluent way through proper practice and enough time spent honing your skills, 1 minute, 60 seconds will always be more than enough time for you to achieve and accomplish your mission, which is to speak steadily up until you're done summarizing the listening's information. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that just about wraps up today's video. If you guys enjoyed the sample responses, leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you still have not done so. Share the content with your close friends and family members if they need the extra assistance. But most importantly, if you are a self-disciplined and dedicated person, reach out to me about my tutoring services. Let's improve your English fluency as much as possible and get the score that you need and deserve as quickly as possible. Peace!